Greetings and bienvenue, MITZU. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
My cousin, my aunt, and I were all outside on the front porch playing. We were all the same age, around 4 or 5. Two teenagers approached us and asked if we wanted to see a castle. I knew this was bad news, but my cousin had to go see it, so we both agreed to follow. We went into the woods and walked along a trail for what felt like an eternity. Probably 20 minutes or so realistically. We arrived to find a beautiful, gleaming, majestic castle in the distance. I'm talking about something you would see in the movies. This place was made of heaven. It literally shined as if we entered a city of wealth. We excitedly looked at each other and sprinted home to tell our parents. The teenagers stayed behind, never chased or followed. Our run back was instantaneous, as if it took a few seconds compared to the walk there. We go and tell my mom, and obviously, she is freaked out and tells us no more playing outside for the day. Here's the thing. My mom was so incredibly strict with me that she would have never let me out of her sight for longer than a minute. The door to the front porch was open, so there was no way two random teenagers could have actually taken us into the woods, let alone anywhere, without one of our parents seeing. My mom and my cousin's mom were the two adults home at the time. I've spoken to my mom about this multiple times. There's no church or anything nearby that we could have mistaken to be a castle. I've even looked like an adult. No luck. All three of us remember this phenomenon. I'm 25 now, so it's been 20 years, but we've spoken about this multiple times over the years, essentially every time we see each other. We all remember. Always have. I know some will chalk this off as a kid's imagination, but I swear to you that this was real. So my question is, what happened? Did we experience a glitch, a parallel universe, divine intervention, pure imagination, or something otherworldly, or did two creeps try to kill us? And has anyone had anything like this happen? I've wanted answers for so long. There was no castle, to begin with. Like in real life, it doesn't exist. We've looked. I do feel as if what happened was spiritual. Maybe they were ghosts. I don't know. They both came into the front yard and approached us. They had kind of a mischievous smile, and asked if we would like to see a castle. I had a bad feeling in my gut, but also because I knew better than to follow strangers. With that being said, they also just seemed like kids at heart who were genuinely excited about their discovery of a castle, and wanted to show somebody else. It seemed like it was new to them too. I remember we were skeptical and they kept assuring us it was real. After we ran off, they didn't follow. I never saw them again. They just stayed put at the castle and we ran home excitedly. What I already described the castle, that's pretty much it. It didn't belong there. Like, it truly felt as if we entered another realm of the universe. The place just reeked of heaven. As I said, the castle literally gleamed and shined. We got so excited we just ran off after and never could find it again. Also, we were never allowed outside ourselves again. The only reason I don't believe it was a fantasy of some sort is that we all grew up together and played all the time. We never had an experience like this. This was a one and only a one-time thing. All our other experiences were normal kid stuff, hide and seek, riding bikes, video games, etc. Nothing like this. But yeah, I don't know, it's certainly always stuck with me because I just have no clue what really happened. This was in Northwest Florida. No castles or anything close to it. A lot of churches, but none nearby that we could have mistaken for a castle. I don't believe any castles existed at a prior time. Me, my cousin, and aunt have all talked about it numerous times. No new details ever came about. My cousin was the oldest, only by 9 months. Oddly enough, he remembers it the least. My aunt and I remember it most vividly of the three. I've even asked my mom multiple times throughout the years. She doesn't remember the event happening at the time, only through me talking to her about it so much, but she agrees that there's no way we could have actually left the front yard. This makes me believe the two teenagers were otherworldly of some sort and gave us a glimpse into their dimension. I don't know, to be honest.
I had a weird experience when I was a teen, back in the late 1950s in my family's rural home on a 2-lane highway in south central Virginia. I was sitting out on the small front porch with my mom. We were doing nothing, just resting in the sun. The traffic on the highway was usually infrequent, and now no cars or trucks had gone by in a while. It was extremely quiet. Our neighbor had come over and was talking to Mom. I lapsed into staring off into space, into the front yard, smelling the pines across the road heated by the sun, smelling the flowers. I wasn't blinking, just staring. It wasn't sudden, but I happened to notice that a slit had appeared in the air and seemed to be parted just enough so I could see inside. Inside the slit was the same yard, the same world, but yet it was different. The sunlight was uniform and soft white, and nothing cast a shadow. I had the strong urge to go explore and hopped down off the side of the porch to go through the slit. I looked back to make sure my mom wasn't watching me and reassured myself that she was still talking to our neighbor, although at this point I could not hear their voices, although they were just a few feet from me. I turned back to the front yard to walk a couple of yards and enter the slit, but it was gone. I think that openings or portals are only open for a very short time. I was just curious, but I wonder what would have happened if I had stepped through. Would it have closed behind me? I would have been one of those children that disappear literally right in the presence of their parents. I believe that they are anywhere where the conditions of solitude are just right and the veils can thin out.
My partner and I were walking home from the grocery store in October 2022. It's about 6 blocks from the store to our house along a busy street in our small Ohio city. As we are walking and chatting, we both observe 2 men smoking cigars on the side of the road. We pass by them and they both look at us. They start making weird comments that seem aggressive. We both had the feeling it was somehow directed toward us. We don't look back and keep walking. At this point, we both realize everything has gone very quiet and there are no cars passing us by. The cars up ahead aren't moving. We can hear music coming from a cafe at the end of the block. Then someone on the other side of the road that we can hear but not see is completely freaking out, screaming, and just going crazy. Everything felt so unsettling to both of us, and we commented on the quiet and how it was so odd. We reach the end of the block where the cafe is, and it's like we have been thrown into a wall of noise. We suddenly hear cars and they all start moving past loudly. Bikes start going by, ringing bells, and basically all the city sounds come back in full force. It was so incredibly bizarre to go from this unnatural, unsettling quiet to everything back to normal, suddenly. We spoke about it and both experienced this in the exact same way. I also had an inexplicable feeling that we had been at a different time at that moment. Not sure why, it was just a feeling. We walk home feeling a bit unsettled. We also pass 2 guys on the street who look exactly the same, with messed up, freaky, inhuman faces that give off extremely aggressive vibes. We again had the same feeling of, this isn't right. We got home and our son acted like we had been out for ages. I checked on my phone when we had checked out at the grocery store, and the walk that usually takes 10 minutes took over 30 minutes. I don't know what happened, but even a week later I felt shaken by it. I have actively avoided walking down the same block for the past 2 months. It seems so small, but we were totally freaked out by it. It all just felt so wrong and sinister. I can't get it out of my head, and it's so weird that my partner and I experienced it all in exactly the same way.
This happened in Sanford, Florida in 2021 at Lake Monroe, at the Veteran Memorial there. The memorial has a lot of places to sit. It was around 2 a.m. or so, and my friend and I were sitting near the lake enjoying the full moon. We were sober and we didn't do drugs at all. We spoke about all sorts of things that night, and how we tend to see a lot of crazy things in that particular location after 12 a.m. So we are sitting there and I look up at the moon and I notice a dark spot on the full moon. And I thought it was just a random dark cloud. I pointed it out to my friend, and at this point, we are both looking up. But this dark spot on the moon starts to spread and it looks like cracks. The moon was cracking and big pieces of the moon started to separate from it. We were both staring in disbelief, trying to make sense of what was happening. It felt like it should not be happening. It felt wrong, like a glitch. We were not scared, just confused. It felt off and very strange because the magnitude of what was happening never hit us. We keep looking up and the moon has completely fractured and separated all within 4 minutes or so. As we keep looking up, we see everything that happened being put in reverse. Just like if someone had hit a reverse button to all that had happened. We were seeing the moon get put back together. All this happened within 2 minutes. So the whole ordeal only took about 7 minutes or so. After this happened, we looked at each other and came to the conclusion that we had just witnessed a glitch in the Matrix. And we were the only ones that saw it. No one online in our area was talking about it. And to this day, that was the most insane thing I have ever seen. And now looking back at it, I have no idea what we did after that whole ordeal. It's like it's veiled or blocked from our memory. My friend feels the same way. I wonder if anyone else saw it.
In the summer of 2017, around 2 hours after my grandfather passed away, me and my sister were in a horrific car accident. It was a bit past midnight. We were on our way to my grandpa's house. I was behind the wheel and driving moderately fast. I was supposed to make a U-turn, but the brakes failed and we hit the guardrail. The front of the car was demolished, and both of us were badly injured. I believe I lost consciousness for a few seconds, and when I woke up again, I looked at her and saw blood all over her face and realized that she too had lost consciousness. She was slowly coming to when I squeezed myself out of the window and went to the other side to get her out of the car. Her door was stuck just like mine, so I couldn't get her out. People started to gather around and called 911. The firefighters came and removed the door and finally brought her out of the car. When the ambulance was taking us to the hospital, I was having the longest déjà vu of my life. I knew which hospital we were going to, even though nobody told me. I knew what the interior of the hospital looked like, somewhere I've never been before. I even knew the name of the doctor who was supposed to stitch me up, someone that I've never met before. It's weird, because as soon as me and my sister were alone and could talk to each other, she told me about how she feels like she's been there before and was feeling déjà vu the whole time. It might seem normal for people who suffered head trauma to experience these kinds of things and read too much into something that isn't actually there, but it's a lot more weird than it seems at first glance. I believe that both of us died on that timeline, but for some reason our consciousness switched on into parallel versions of ourselves in another universe. And the constant feeling of déjà vu was because of our consciousnesses settling into the bodies of our alternate selves, with the original consciousnesses still present, which caused the feeling of experiencing everything twice. Now here's something truly bizarre. There was this song called Zalim by Mohsen Chavoshi, which our mom loved and listened to almost every day. Even when my mom didn't play it, my older brother would. It was kind of a signature song in our home back in 2005 or 08. So a few months after the crash, I was having a conversation with one of my co-eds about music. She was without a doubt the #1 fan of Mohsen Chavoshi, to the point that we used to call her Chavoshist. She was talking about her favorite Chavoshi song, and I just remembered all those years of listening to Zalim. I said, "Yeah, he's a good singer. My mom loved Zalim. She used to play it on repeat until someone became sick of hearing it." She frowned and asked me about the song that I just mentioned. She said that he doesn't have a song named Zalim. I thought maybe I got the name wrong, so I sang the chorus. She shook her head and said it's not Chavoshi's song. She named Farouk as the singer. I swore that the song I used to listen to was Chavoshi's. His voice is unmistakable. There's no way I'd be wrong about that. So she asked me to send her the song. Obviously, I didn't have our old computer in which the song was stored on, and I couldn't find our old Chavoshi mix CD. So I Googled it, and no matter how much I looked, I couldn't find it online. I even searched for the lyrics and only found the song Zalim by Farouk. I thought, maybe it's the same song and I was wrong all along, so I downloaded and listened to it. But the song by Farouk can't be more different from what I remember. Sure, it has the same lyrics, but the melody and genre of it is completely different. So I asked my mom about it, and guess what? She never heard of it, nor did my brother who gave us the song in the first place. They have no recollection of that song, whether it's Chavoshi's or Farouk's. On the other hand, my sister remembers it. I sang her the chorus and she said it was Chavoshi's song. Somehow, she and I have memories about a song which doesn't even exist in this world. I don't know why or even how it's possible, but I sincerely believe that we moved through the dimensions when we were both unconscious after the crash. I've heard stories that happened to other people, which are similar to our experience. I don't want to get in too much on this one, but I think it has something to do with my grandpa's death. Maybe we were supposed to die that night, but his death caused an event which led to us moving on into another universe, where we didn't die.
I had turned 11 years old during the prior month, and the school year had started a few weeks beforehand in September 1971. At that time, there were several family relatives living closely together within a rural area in close proximity of Sylacauga, Alabama. The area terrain was low, forested hills, with paved roadway, and widely spaced residences in reasonably cleared areas along route. The incident occurred after nightfall near evening meal time. approximately 7 o'clock or 8 p.m., on a night with no following day's school. My younger step-cousin had hiked his way through a forested area separating the neighboring residences, requesting my younger brother and myself accompany him back to the other residence, to engage in playing various board games. To the best of my memory, the evening was seasonally warm with moonlight. As the three of us proceeded back through the forested area separating the residences, I took note of the amount of noise we were creating just from walking through the seasonal tree litter all over the forest floor, and ambient moonlight was enough to easily avoid footing collision issues. Approximately halfway through the forested area, I had wandered a slight distance ahead of other two individuals. Approximately 10 to 15 feet from them being engaged in dawdling around, pushing and jesting each other. While continuing to walk, I would occasionally engage jokingly with them. As I arrived at the side area of a moderate-sized tree, I walked by it and suddenly caught sight of what looked like a person jumping out from around the tree from a hiding position that came lunging towards me with outstretched arms, as if to seize or grab. Because had been caught totally off guard and quite startled, I rapidly twisted away from whoever was leaping at me, turning towards my left and crouching/hunkering over in a desperate defensive position, with teeth clenched and eyes force closed, expecting the attacker to soon contact my exposed back. From the brief glance at whoever was leaping from behind the tree, the person appeared to be approximately 5.5 feet tall, slim normal build, and had hair that looked normal. Although non-combed unkempt, of short medium length and lesser color shade than medium brown. My glance did not last long enough to take in particulars of facial features, clothing, etc. I then began to slowly, cautiously rise back up out of the defensive position, while listening intently for any forest floor litter noise to indicate the location or pathway of the attacker. Absolutely no associated noise was detected, and as no noticeable physical attack was forthcoming, I apprehensively finished standing back up and glanced all around me. Whoever had looked like it was jumping at me from behind the tree was nowhere in sight, and any departure from the area went undetected. During the process of glancing around me, I noticed that both my brother and the step-cousin were in the process of recovery from almost identical defensive reactions/positions as myself, and were also starting to glance about in apprehension, confusion, etc. After determining nothing was around us, we simply shrugged shoulders at each other, and resumed our progress through the forested area, as if nothing had occurred. Only once during the evening's board game play did my brother casually ask what I thought that was all about, back in the woods, to which I replied I thought it must have been a spook/ghost, pulling pranks. This explanation seemed to satisfy him, and the incident has never been discussed since.
It was the end of my shift and I was heading out to meet up with my roommate, who worked at the same place but on a different floor. As I was heading out, I saw him passing through the door of the main entrance with our mutual friend. I jokingly thought, the asshole isn't waiting for me. They were about 10 meters in front of me. I saw them turn the corner, so, when I did the same, I was expecting to see them on the walkway, heading toward the car, but they weren't there. I kept walking, wondering where they were, telling myself it was impossible for them to already be in the car. There was about 100 meters, then they would have to cross the road and then walk another 20 meters behind the fence to reach the car. I got to the car, no one was there. I waited about 2 or 3 minutes before I received a call from my roommate, asking me where I was. He told me he was waiting for me inside the building. I said that I saw him exit the building with our friend, to which he replied that he was beside him. I thought it was a joke. That they, somehow, managed to hide somewhere and got behind me to prank me. When they got to the car, they told me to quit whatever drug I was on because they never left the building and waited in the hall. So, I tried to rationalize what just happened. I knew my roommate's clothing, so someone wearing a black cap with a gray shirt is somewhat common. But I hadn't seen my other friend until then, but the other of the duo I saw exiting the building was also dressed like him. I asked them where they were and my roommate told me he was waiting for either me or the other friend in the main hall so he could go in the bathroom while whoever got there first waited for the other. So either I would have seen my roommate or my friend in the hall, but we didn't see each other and none of us have a cell phone addiction. To this day, their story is still the same, and if it's a joke, well, they're tenacious. It happened 6 months ago. It became an inside joke among us. that I've made jump between dimensions, unknowingly. Whenever we have a misunderstanding, we jokingly blame my dimension drifting tendency. I don't know what happened that day, but I swear I saw them exit the building. And even if it wasn't them, my friend would have intercepted me.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.